One of the most common things to do in any MMO is collecting, and often the go-to thing to collect are mounts, and Final Fantasy XIV is no exception. As the closer you get to the end game, the more likely you are to want to collect some of the many cool mounts that you've come across in your journey. But knowing where to start can be a bit difficult, so here are 5 things to do in order to get some nice mounts. Starting off is ocean fishing, a fun piece of content that many players just aren't aware of, which is sad considering the fact that it's not only really fun, but it also serves as a great way to level your fisher and even rewards a rather nice mount. So for those unaware, ocean fishing is essentially a fishing raid that you can take part in every other hour by going to the docks near the Arcanist Guild in Limsa, after which you'll be put on a boat with other players where you will try to catch as many fish and get as many points as possible. Now there isn't a level requirement for this. You can start ocean fishing the moment you pick up the job. However, if you want to go for any of the rewards such as the mount, then you'll want to have some levels and, to an extent, some gear. Because in order to get your shark, you'll have to complete a fishing trip with a score of at least 10k to get the achievement that rewards the mount. And while this does sound a bit daunting, in truth, it's rather easy to get at max level, but you can actually start going for it as low as level 65 with enough luck. Now there is actually a lot of optimization that goes into ocean fishing, primarily if you want to get some of the more difficult rewards like the titles. But if you're just going for the mount, all you'll really need to do is get as much GP gear and food as you can. Stock up on high cordials, and then when you get into an actual boat, you're going to want to max out your favor stacks in preparation for a spectral current, which is a special event triggered by catching spectral fish. You're going to want to try and get as many double and or triple hooks as you can during these events to maximize the amount of points that you get, so make sure to use your cordials and favors during this time. Now if you want to be more optimal with it or just go down the rabbit hole that is ocean fishing, then consider checking out Lulu's Tools or the Fisherman's Horizon Discord. Sticking to mounts gained from non-combat jobs, we have custom deliveries, which are special NPCs that you can make various deliveries to 6 times a week to gain affinity with them. And upon reaching max affinity, you'll gain the ability to glam that NPC, and in some special cases, you'll actually receive rewards like glams or mounts. Specifically, there are 2 deliveries that reward mounts. The first is L2, a custom delivery that becomes available after unlocking the firmament, along with completing a quest line in the area. And the second is Arden, which becomes available once you complete a quest in the Crystarium that is only available after completing the main story of Endwalker. Now, in both cases, you'll have to make the deliveries each week to progress their stories until you eventually max them out, at which point you'll receive a quest that gives their respective mounts. Now, if you're going to do this through crafting, if you're wondering where you get the items to actually craft them, usually there is a merchant relatively close to these NPCs that sell the items that you'll need. Our next few mounts come from the exploration zones found in Stormblood and Shadowbringers, specifically Eureka Pegos and Bosja. Now, there are actually quite a few mounts found throughout these pieces of content, but most of them are incredibly rare or incredibly difficult to obtain, which is why we're going to be talking about ones that basically anyone can get with relatively little ease. Starting off, we have the T-Rex and the Gabriel. These can be obtained by opening the lockboxes gained from doing the fates found within both areas, which of course means they're locked behind a bit of RMG like many of the other mounts. However, the sheer number of lockboxes you'll be able to get just by progressing the area makes the chances of obtaining either of them rather likely. But of course it does come down to luck. Some people will get multiples immediately while others will go through 300 plus boxes and never see one. Though if you want a little more control over the mount you're farming, then you can go for the construct that can be bought with the clusters obtained from killing the robotic enemies found in either Bosja or Zadnor. Now this still is RNG as the enemies only have a chance to drop them, but since there is a set number you need to obtain to get your mount, you'll always feel this sense of progression when going for this mount. Moreover, you can usually find people doing cluster farms in Bosja. You just need to ask to join one of these parties, but even if they aren't, tanks can usually farm these relatively easy by themselves with the correct essences, usually the essence of the Bloodsucker. Moving on to the new content introduced in Endwalker, we have the variant dungeons. For those just finishing the MSQ, these are non-linear dungeons where your actions affect the things that happen in the dungeon, leading to 12 possible endings that once you've obtained all of them will unlock an achievement that rewards a mount, usually resembling one of the enemies or bosses. Moreover, getting the different endings isn't always the easiest thing to do, as many of them are locked behind puzzles like killing enemies in a certain order, having enemies attack certain objects, or even using specific emotes or saying certain things in Say Chat. Now the nice thing about these dungeons is not only do they have more rewards than just the mounts, but they also can be done solo with any job with relatively little ease, meaning you can take these as fast or as slow as you want. If you want to figure out the puzzles yourself, then you can do that, or if you want to look up the answers and just get the rewards, you can do that as well. And like the exploration zones, there are more mounts than the ones mentioned, however those are tied to the harder versions of these dungeons, which are more akin to a savage fight. Now as of the release of this video, there are a total of 3 variant dungeons currently available, each starting in Old Charlian. The last piece of content on our list, and the one that rewards the most amount of mounts, is Island Sanctuaries. Another piece of content introduced in Endwalker that revolves around taking care of an island. And as you progress the island, more and more items will be able to be bought with the island-specific currency, many of which are mounts. Now, to obtain this currency and progress your island, you have to take advantage of your workshop, which allows you to turn the items you collect on your island into items that you can sell for both currency and experience. Now, to quickly explain how this works, every item has a category, and if you sell different items in the same category, you get an efficiency bonus, increasing the number of items crafted, along with also building groove, which will simply increase the price that your items sell for. For this reason, you always want to try to alternate between the items you're crafting. So for example, instead of doing a potion, you would instead want to do potion, fire, sand, potion, getting both efficiency and groove. The other thing you want to keep in mind is demand and supply. Put simply, these are modifiers that affect how much your item is going to sell for. The higher the demand and the lower the supply, the more your item is going to sell for. So when it comes to choosing items to sell, you're going to want to choose those that have a high demand. However, when it comes to supply, things get a bit complicated, as unlike demand, supply will constantly change throughout a week, and while there is a pattern to it, the easiest way to use it is to look for items that have a sufficient/low supply and a positive shift, as this usually means that the supply will become non-existent or low the following day. Of course, if that sounds overly complicated, you can forego the extra bonus and just focus on demand, or you can simply use a solver like Teamcraft, which you can find in the description. Now, when it comes to starting off your island, here are a few extra tips. Avoid spending any of the currency starting off because you're going to need it to progress. Focus on getting your workshops first and then your granaries. Your workshops are your primary way of getting both currency and levels. Try to fill out your pasture as fast as possible with a variety of different animals, especially any rare ones that you come across. Lastly, plant a variety of produce so you can have more crafting options along with better feed for your animals, which will increase the yield of their items. And that marks the end of this video. If you found this helpful, please consider subscribing and or liking the video, and if you want to see something else from me, consider checking out one of my other guides, which should be in the corner, or possibly one of my lore videos if that catches your interest. If you've made it this far into the video, first off, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.